President Trump is scoring a big win with his successful renegotiation of the trade deal formerly known as NAFTA. And while his methods may be unpopular, he is delivering on some of his biggest campaign promises. On trade, not only has Trump renegotiated NAFTA, he has revised the U.S. trade deal with South Korea and is in the process of renegotiating the current deal with Japan. Trump promised to pull out of other so-called bad deals for the U.S., and he has. Since he took office, the U.S. has left the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, the Paris Climate Accord, and the Iran nuclear deal. Making good on his promise to cut taxes for businesses and workers, he signed a $1 trillion tax overhaul back in December, which cuts the corporate tax rate to 21%, lowers individual rates, and doubles the standard deduction. As for Trump's promise to slash regulations, the administration says it has withdrawn or delayed more than 1,500 Obama rule proposals, and it has also taken 67 deregulatory actions while imposing only 3 new regulations. Trump is following through on his promise to reshape the judiciary. He has appointed Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court and has another conservative nominee, of course, Brett Kavanaugh, waiting in the wings. He has also gotten, get your head around this, 68 judges confirmed to the federal courts. Finally, Trump is cracking down on immigration. He fought for it and got a revised travel ban, put a zero-tolerance policy in place at the border, and has enacted rules that limit the amount of refugees, asylum seekers, and other immigrants that come into the country. Joining us now is Republican strategist Rick Tyler. Okay, Rick, when you take that list, the president can tick through it for a campaign ad. And some people could say, well, look, he kept his promises. But those promises that he kept are not only not just a win for many Republicans, for most Americans. So are they really a win?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, Stephanie. I'd say on the NAFTA, we really have NAFTA dos or NAFTA do, whatever you want to say about it. The changes weren't really, they were marginal changes. NAFTA was being renegotiated anyway. It needed to be updated. It was essentially taking a 2,000-page document, ripping off the cover, putting a new name on it, adding a new chapter, and doing some editing. So, what's amazing is Donald Trump has now joined the globalists and has convinced his base that he's ripped up NAFTA. And what he's done is really embraced NAFTA and embraced substantially what NAFTA was, because most of it remains in place. On taxes, I would say that I think he got a big win there, but it remains to be seen if most Americans will feel that. Corporations got it. People who own investments saw a big bump in the stock market, and that's good. And I think in the long run, it's good in deregulation. I support all those things. But whether it's a political win in coming this November or House's reelection remains to be seen. Big taxes. The tax cut hasn't worked in terms of polling because it shows that most people don't believe. They still think the fix is in, that only the elite and the very small people at the top, which is largely true, got the benefit of the tax cut, and they still think that the whole tax system is a rigged game.
So, Rick, I guess the question is, if you use NAFTA as an example, you take something that maybe required some fixing, you claim to rip it up, or you
also claim it's a disaster.
You claim it's a disaster. You decide you're going to destroy it. Then you, as you say, you clean it up, put a new cover on it, present it, and you get to tick it off as a success. For people who are not involved in the news as much as the three of us are, it's a talking point, and it may be a successful one in some quarters.
Well, it's going to be very successful. But look, the elections are coming up in 5 weeks, and people are not going to go through and read NAFTA.
Correct.
Or not going to feel the implications of change. But take, for instance, on the automobile industry, right? Who really benefited of that was the Mexican auto worker, right? They got a big, huge raise. That's going to result in higher prices, most likely for most American consumers on cars. But it will also leave American producers, manufacturers of automobiles, to search for ways to automate, because they got to compete with lower prices, and so they need to get those prices down. How are they going to do that? The workers are the most expensive thing. So they actually, it's a sort of a rushed automation. So look, I don't believe in planned economies from the central office. No one would. We talked years ago about would Amazon ever become profitable? Well, now they're so profitable they just gave all their employees a minimum of $15, double the minimum wage. So I mean they're rolling in cash. No one would have predicted that about Google, Apple. We used to joke about that it was not going to make it because it was this small niche company that couldn't compete with Microsoft. Well, look at Apple now. So I just don't believe in these big broad brush, oh, we're going to save the economy. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with NAFTA. The dairy farmers got something marginal, but as the Canadian said, they can be really hurt by this. And the American farmer, they're getting 3.5% of the Canadian market, and it's a small market. So that's nothing. I mean, it's okay.
Well,
it's
that
great.
was definitely an issue that the president made larger than it might have been.
Ali,
Yeah,
I
the
say to
dairy farmer in
you,
Wisconsin.
it's a cheesy win, but it's a win just the same.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.